Yeah, we are recording. Good. So welcome. And I thought it was most important that we talk about the vaccine availability, when we can get it, where we can get it, why we should get it. And I also wanted to update people just on the status of where we're at in terms of the pandemic here in the United States and in the world globally. And then I really want to spend the major part of the discussion answering questions for you guys. This morning I was on a Zoom call with Colorado Department of Public Health, Colorado Academy of Family Physicians, and medical societies, et cetera, getting updated by some of the people in that department, as well as some immunologists and infectious disease experts. So definitely have that uploaded into my brain to help you guys in terms of answering some of those more complex questions. So currently, as you know, we've exceeded 300,000 deaths in the United States, unfortunately. As of last night, we were at 303,000. We're probably going to be around 310 later today, would be my guess. 73 million cases globally, and 16 million of those are in the United States alone. Unfortunately, our country is leading the world in the number of cases. Again, I think this is somewhat because of the politicization of mask wearing and our division in our country and our inability to protect ourselves from the virus. Also secondary to some of our poor health habits, obesity rates, and type 2 diabetes are contributing to our higher death rates as well. But you can see on the map how it's fairly dense in the United States. Canada is not too bad. Europe, fairly dense. Of course, Brazil is up there in the top three as well. So the top three in terms of cases and deaths are really the United States, Brazil, and India, Mexico behind us there as well. And this graph demonstrates how, yes, we're unfortunately winning the game in terms of the number of cases and the number of deaths. We are the green line that you can see here, peaking above Brazil and every other country. Now, the good news is I'm seeing a slight dip in the number of cases in our country, and we're definitely going to see that, or we are seeing that in Colorado as well. So we're going to hopefully be trending in a good direction. I am worried about the Christmas time spikes, just like we had after Thanksgiving, and we're going to have to keep our game on in terms of mask wearing, et cetera, until we get the vaccine deployed to a larger population. Here's our Colorado cases and hospitalization rates. We did have some issues in terms of testing capability. I know the state closed down a lot of their testing facilities just because the weather was cold, which I thought was kind of ridiculous. It is Colorado after all. So some of that testing drop could be due to lack of access to getting a free test done. But I'm hopeful that a lot of the drops in new cases is truly due to us being more diligent about mask wearing and staying at home when we can, et cetera. And you can see the curves are showing declines in positive cases, declines in hospitalizations. We're still seeing a rise in the number of deaths, and that's due to the lag time from the spike of new cases over Thanksgiving and a little prior to that. So hopefully the death rate will decline over the coming weeks. But again, we've got to be careful over the holidays here not to spike it again. Currently, we have roughly 1,600 people in hospitals. I don't think we're beyond ICU capacity, and I doubt we will. Hopefully, we won't go beyond that capacity. The number of people that have died in Colorado ranges somewhere from 3,500 to 4,000, depending on classification of what was the cause of death. So you'll get some controversy around that. But we've lost, a significant number of people. Not to be ignored by any means. Now, I've had probably, 60, 70 patients in the practice that I'm aware of that have come down with COVID. Knock on wood, nobody has been hospitalized. No one's even required home oxygen, which has been great. So I think those of you who are watching this that have gotten COVID in my practice have been doing an excellent job in terms of the prevention and hospitalization and maintenance of your health, doing some of the strategies that we've talked about all along since the early spring. So if you do get it, I think you can follow some of my guides that I have on our homepage at revolutionarymd.com. And then the most important thing is to maintain good health through nutritional interventions, healthy lifestyle, trying to get some light exercise so you're able to maintain some pulmonary and cardiovascular health, and then resting as needed. You don't want to push it too hard as you're recovering from this. And some people are having a post-COVID syndrome where they've got a lot of fatigue for months now, and that's where, if you're struggling with that, you can come into our office. We can do some IV vitamin C, IV glutathione, NAD B complex. We've got a lot of different strategies to help you kick the fatigue and get feeling better more rapidly. So just let us know if you'd like to do some of that. And I have done some nebulized glutathione for those that have a persistent cough after the COVID infection, and the glutathione will aerosolize, go into your lungs, and reduce that inflammation really nicely. If you happen to get another virus like RSV or the flu, it can also be helpful for that too. So it's kind of putting out that fire more so with glutathione than just bronchodilating like we do with albuterol, etc. Pulse magnetic field therapy, which we have here, can be helpful for improving energy, mitochondrial health, and then can also help in terms of lymphatic flow and blood flow. So that could be a nice post-recovery therapy too. So I'm so excited that we finally got the vaccine here. I was hoping for a little bit more warp speed, but we can't complain that we've got it when we've received it here. So we've gotten the Pfizer vaccine. We're going to get the Moderna hopefully next week. Talk a little bit more about that here in a second. So Pfizer shipped us 4,600 doses. I'm sorry, 46,000 doses this week to Colorado. Those are now being, as you've seen on the news, deployed in major hospitals to nurses and doctors that are on the front line. Next week, we expect another 95,000 vaccines, which would be awesome, coming from Moderna. And that's the one that I got when I participated in the trial. And we've got a long ways to go. We have 5.8 million people in Colorado to achieve herd immunity. I'm guessing we need 3 to 4 million vaccines to be done at least, and those that are eligible at this time. So we can only hope that by late summer we reach that goal. And I'll talk about those challenges of reaching that goal in a moment too. The vaccine efficacy is amazing, far beyond what I would expect, getting at that 94 to 95% efficacy. Even after the first shot, they're showing that you have a 52% efficacy within 2 weeks. So you'll definitely be somewhat protected even after dose number 1. The second dose for the Pfizer one is 21 days later. And then for the Moderna, it's 28 days later. It's too bad they aren't on the same schedule. And you have to make sure that if you get the Pfizer, that you do the Pfizer booster, not the Moderna booster, obviously. Kind of a no-brainer, but that question's been asked a little bit. So you got to stay with the same vaccine, even though they're the same technology in terms of messenger RNA. Minimal adverse effects. We had that one case out in England, I think, with a transverse myelitis, but from what I understand, that resolved. Some people have had some issues in terms of being a little sensitive if they're kind of in that category of they react to a Band-Aid on their skin or eat anything, they have an allergy. So the hypersensitive people, I'm definitely going to be watching when I give the vaccine and making them hang out for 30 minutes and have an EpiPen on hand. But those have just been a few cases they've noted as they've rolled it out to the hospitals in England. More vaccines coming. If there is a mutation in the new messenger RNA vaccine that we've got with Moderna and the Pfizer, the virologists, immunologists were saying that it's super easy for them to be able to tweak it and redeploy it and get it out to the public relatively quickly. So the slight mutation they're seeing in England, which is showing still susceptibility to the current vaccine, is not a concern, but if it has some other major mutation, we might have to change it up down the road. Pregnant women are allowed to get the vaccine, but we don't know the safety of the fetus. So, you know, if I were a gal planning to get pregnant, I would say I'm going to hold off for 6 months, try to get the vaccine on board, and then get pregnant. We just don't know if it could create some kind of an issue there. So I'd play it safe personally. Now, most of you have heard of the phased allocation of the vaccine, and we're currently in the phase 1A, where we're giving it to those at highest risk, the providers, particularly in hospitals, and then those in the long-term care facilities. And then we're going to drop down to giving it to our EMS folks, our firefighters, police, correctional workers, first responders. And that's all going to occur throughout this month, next month, and probably into February a little bit. Phase 2 is when hopefully I can come into play and provide the vaccine to you guys. Phase 2 will be initially for people over the age of 65, or if you have a history of heart disease, lung disease, kidney disease, etc., you're basically immunocompromised and not 65. I can still give it to you as well. And you can see the other indications. People that work in a grocery store, teachers, etc., will be eligible for phase 2. And then phase 3 will be in the summer, so that'll be everybody else, you know, a healthy 25-year-old, etc. And we'll just kind of have to see how it goes. Now, the potential timing for me to get the phase 2 here in the office is still up in the air. I've been in regular contact with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, and they really can't give me any promises or specific dates other than sometime in the spring. We'll let you know, Fred. I was hoping I could get a heads up that, yeah, we might be able to get it for you in February rather than March, but still waiting on that, and very hopeful that it'll be February. And my intuition is probably we'll get it in February. The challenge is how many doses will they give me, et cetera. It's going to be very tightly controlled. I'm going to have to do a lot of computer logging around this and tracking because of all the regulations. And I think it's reasonable to do that. We don't want to waste any doses at all. Now, if you should have an opportunity to get it somewhere, like, and if you wanted to get it, you know, up in Fraser, Winter Park area, and they're offering it at a community health center, definitely go ahead and get it there rather than waiting to come down here. I think the main rule of thumb is if you've got it available, get it as soon as you can, wherever you can, without a doubt. When I have it available, I will send out that email, you know, probably within minutes of getting the confirmation of it, you know, my FedEx delivery note or whatever. So don't worry about getting that message from our office. And we'll definitely have to prioritize it based upon your health and your age. But we'll do everything we can to get it on board. It's going to be free. I will stay here till midnight giving vaccines in the parking lot, whatever it takes to get this thing out. I want to get this over with like you guys do. So why should we get this vaccine? I think everybody knows why, but I'll just run through my little bucket list, and you guys can at the end tell me some things that I might have missed on this. But I think for obvious reasons, we want to avoid death, and even if we're young and healthy, there's still potential to die from this virus. And who knows if it's going to become more virulent and more lethal down the road as possible. So it's another reason to get it on there. There's so many complications we've seen, from something minor like COVID toes to somebody losing a leg, to a stroke, to a heart attack, to you know, chronic fatigue, you name it. It's not something you want to deal with. And then I think there's, without a doubt, a lot of chronic inflammatory damage that's done as a result of having the virus versus the vaccine, which is not going to create that. So you can prevent a lot of downstream inflammation by preventing the infection. We will get longer protection with the vaccine compared to natural immunity. Some are thinking we may get 5 years, but they're not going to, you know, say that for sure, of course, until we have the research and data to back that up, but based upon what they're seeing in terms of antibody levels from this technology, they think there's a potential for long-term immunity. For me, most importantly, I think we are saving the lives of others by getting the vaccine. I'm a very altruistic guy, and if I can do something to improve the health of my community, of the nation, of the world, I'm all about it. And that includes doing all the environmental things, like I've got solar panels on my house, and I try to minimize my carbon footprint, et cetera. So I think we need more of our citizens to do that if we want to survive on this planet. I think businesses will reopen as we get vaccinated, so we're going to save the economy. We're going to save people from poverty. We're going to save people from putting guns to their heads, suicide rates, homicide rates, etc. So in general, we're going to reduce human suffering. We have no idea what's coming down the pipe. Crap, I mean, we could have a major earthquake in California. The Yellowstone volcano could blow. We could get some rogue missile from Iran nuking D.C. There could be another pandemic coming down the road, domestic terrorism, you name it. So we need to get our game on. We need to get back up on our feet so that we can survive whatever's going to hit us next. It's a very unstable world and very unpredictable world as we have a rising population, as we have more variables and chaos insulting our stability worldwide. My goal in my practice is to get 80% of you immunized, and I hope you'll step up to the plate and do that. So what does the vaccine feel like? As I mentioned, I participated in the Moderna trial, and it was interesting. I went in and I'm like, oh God, I hope I get the real thing. I just don't want to get a shot of salt water in my arm. And it was interesting. Once I got it, I kind of had this intuitive hit that I got the real thing. And sure enough, within a few hours, I could feel a lot of pain in my arm, but then radiated up to my shoulder. It was definitely more painful than a flu shot. The following day, I felt a little bit of fatigue, but no fever or anything with round one. Just the arm pain and, just a little fatigue and muscle aches is all I had on round one. The round two was a bitch, to be honest. I had given myself the shingles vaccine, the new Shingrix one. This was worse than that. And I got it on a Monday, and then I saw patients on a Tuesday, and it literally kicked my ass. I was able to work, but a lot of brain fog. Luckily, I didn't have anything procedural to do, and pretty mellow patient care. But it was hard in terms of mustering the energy to go see people throughout the day. So I would definitely advise taking a spa day and relaxing and having your bottle of Tylenol there. And bottom line is, it's not a pleasant vaccine, but it's totally worth it for yourself and for the protection of others. So, I'm just going to tell people to suck it up, get it done. It's only one day out of your life where you're going to feel like crap, but it's better than being in an ICU for 6 weeks on a ventilator and being debilitated for the rest of your life or dying. So those are your options. So here's proof of my vaccination effectiveness. I'm cool. No HIPAA issue in terms of me sharing my own stuff. But you can see how if I had an active infection, the IgM levels would be elevated on the left side. And you can see that's all negative. But after you've either had an infection or you've had the vaccine, you're going to have positive IgGs on the right. So you'll see my spike glycoproteins, receptor binding positive, spike glycoprotein positive. But interestingly, the nucleoprotein is negative. The nucleoprotein is negative because that's not included in the vaccine. So that proved to me that this was a vaccine-related antibody result, not a disease-related antibody result. Now, what was funny is Moderna would not share with me the 48 tubes of blood work of any sort in terms of what my antibodies look like. So I just had to, spend the $150 on my own to figure it out for sure. And then, eventually figured out that I got the vaccine. So I think a lot of the Moderna vaccine participants may be doing this as well, just to verify. And hopefully those that didn't get it can get the vaccine, in the stage phase 1, since they were willing to step up to the plate rather than having to wait to phase 2 or 3. We'll wait and see how that goes. But just wanted to show that, yeah, you will get a good reaction to IgG. One good thing is, I don't know if it's a good thing, but as you get older, the adverse effects in terms of the muscle aches and fatigue are less. So the older you are, the less of an ass kicker you're going to have from this vaccine. At my age, it was pretty brutal. I don't know what it's going to be for like a 30-year-old, probably even a little bit worse. So definitely those folks under 50, when they come up, or make sure they've got the analgesics ready to go. So I think my biggest concern is our country and how mucked up we are right now politically and divided. And, you know, we're a lot of selfish people, a lot of folks that really don't care about the bigger picture, a lot of people that are not well educated, etc. So with all the ongoing misinformation, the conspiracy theories, the QAnon infiltration of vulnerable groups on social media, we've got a big challenge ahead of us. So I'd encourage you, and I know it's kind of a challenging thing, but, you know, call people out on their bullshit and tell them they're wrong, and you know, ask them, what's your source, you know, because so many of these sources are trolls from Russia or trolls from QAnon trying to infiltrate like a mom's breastfeeding group, or, you know, some other, you know, natural group, etc. They're like, you know, viruses themselves that are trying to attack people's intelligence, and if people don't have their critical thinking caps on, they're going to succumb to this viral misinformation that's out there. The anti-vaxxer websites and social media sites are spreading fear and misinformation, trying to get donations, and I'm by no means a huge fan of Big Pharma. You guys know that, or the vaccine companies. I think they are probably going to make, you know, a lot more money than they should be. But they've done a hell of a lot of good in terms of developing this vaccine as fast as they have, and we wouldn't be here with the solution without their help. So we have to look at the greater good of the vaccine production. There's, again, inadequate education that's out there. I have not seen a single public service announcement on our local news, national news, anything in terms of why people should get the vaccine. Not even a thing on social media, so I think we're lagging way behind. I mean, you look at anything like if somebody's going to roll out a new book, they've been advertising for a year before they even do that. We should have had something spinning out for at least a month or two now, and there's nothing other than, you know, 9 News showing the governor opening a box of vaccines being delivered. We've got a lot of political spin dividing us further. I don't know what kind of spin is going to be thrown at us in the coming months, but I hope it's a positive spin towards trusting the vaccine and not mistrusting it. And again, you know, as a result of our dysfunction politically, intellectually, and willpower-wise, we've got more deaths than any other country. Yeah, make America great again. And a lot of work is going to have to be done in terms of the new president turning all this around, in terms of getting the vaccine and in terms of economic recovery. So we've got a huge, huge task ahead of us. Privacy concerns, we're asking about that on this morning's call. And what they're saying is there will be a database here in Colorado for each and every one of us that gets the vaccine. I have to record it there, but it's not going to be available to the general public, and it's not going to be even given to the feds. The feds are only going to get data in terms of, you know, perhaps saying Dr. Grover immunized 300 patients and they were of this age and this ethnicity, but there will be no patient identifiers that will say Jane Smith got it and here's her address, that kind of stuff. So I think that's nice to know we've got some protection going on there. A lot of people ask, will it change my DNA? Not with these vaccines, because it's a messenger RNA. So the messenger RNA will just help as a template to produce the antibodies in your body. If I've had COVID, should I still get the vaccine? The answer is yes. 90 days after you were infected is ideal. And we know that in many cases, the natural infection does not provide long-term protection for you. So the vaccine definitely gives you a much more robust long-term benefit. Do I still need to wear a mask after getting vaccinated? Yes. I've been doing it myself. A lot of it is respect, but a lot of it is, the potential that maybe I could have a low-grade infection even after getting the vaccine and give it to somebody. So we don't really know the answer on being able to communicate the virus after getting the vaccine. I think it's going to be very low risk. And my hope is that we can get rid of these masks, by late summer or early fall if we get vaccinated in an optimal way. A lot of the anti-vaxxers are saying I'm going to be implanted by this vaccine. That's the biggest crock of BS I've ever heard of. There's no little metal transmitter in there. It's just liquids. So call them out on that. Is there mercury in it? No. There are some preservatives, but they're not a toxic preservative. Restrictions on travel. Hell yeah, you're going to have a lot of restrictions on travel. Qantas has said, no way, you're not coming out without a vaccine. And I think United and American, most of the major carriers are probably going to require it. Now, there could be some kind of a backlash, and they have some middle ground that's found there. But I think if you want to travel beyond Cancun, you're going to have to get the vaccine. Any other European country, because of our behavior here in the United States, is going to laugh at any American trying to come over without the vaccine record evidence. And I don't know if that's going to be a true certificate or just the little card that I sign, how that's going to look. But I think it's probably going to have to be something a little bit more robust, because there's going to be a lot of people trying to make money off of making fake vaccine certificates, just like they do with companion dogs on planes, etc. So there's going to be a more sophisticated, unpiratable means for making certificates. And again, yeah, I think we'll be free of masks if we do what we should do by late summer or this time next year at the latest. But so much of that depends on our behaviors and our ability to get people up to herd immunity level. All righty, guys. So thanks for putting up with my long presentation. I am now ready to take any questions you guys have. Shoot away.
Hi, my name is Bonnie. I'm in New York. Thank you so much. This was an excellent presentation. I have two questions.
Yeah.
What is the difference between the two different vaccines? Is there a difference, and why are there two?
Yeah, great question. They're basically the same messenger RNA technology. I think the only difference really is the preservative and some of the medium that they come in. From what I understand, the formulation is very, very similar, which is why they both have a 94 to 95% efficacy. The bummer with the Pfizer one is, and this may be related to preservative issues, you have to keep it, ultra refrigerated in that minus 90-degree temp. And as a result of that, I'm probably just going to have the Moderna here in my office, unless they supply me with the freezer or, dry ice to keep it on.
Yeah, thank you. And one other question. I read somewhere that a number of people have had Bell palsy from it. Is that something you've...
Yeah, that's I haven't seen how many numbers, but yeah, that can happen with any vaccine, even a flu vaccine, and it's kind of a neural inflammation. The only case I heard was a transverse myelitis, and that resolved with some steroid treatments. Bell's palsy is, a paralyzation around the facial nerve, and we can clear that typically with an early dose of steroids as well. And I think, in terms of what can we do to prevent that, one thing we could consider is doing some glutathione after the vaccine, maybe some omega-3. Those things can protect our nervous system and our peripheral nerves very well. So if you guys have some glutathione, take that before and after the vaccine, maybe for a week or two after each dose.
Thank you so much. I wish I lived in Colorado so I could see you.
Yeah, no worries. Well, I'll be having more Zoom so I can keep you informed here.
Yeah, but you can't be my doctor in New York.
I know. Well, you can fly out. Come ski with us too.
Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
This is Elwin.
Hey, Ellen.
Good
How are you?
morning. First, excellent presentation.
Thank you.
I have a question about earlier in your presentation. You mentioned having signed an agreement. Was that with the Colorado Department of Health?
Yeah, it was.
What did you have to agree to?
It was like a 9-pager. It wasn't a lot of fun. It was basically an agreement saying, that I would administer it in the proper categories of people based on the phases, that I keep it refrigerated, and that I would record, the doses given and people that I gave it to, that kind of thing.
All right.
So that's all. And the hopper, what I want is just a reply back from them saying, okay, Fred, this is the anticipated date, but it's just too early for them to give that to me.
Understood.
Yeah.
Hi, Fred. I'm Tiffany in Central Oregon, and I have 2 little ones. So I'm curious about what you know about for babies and toddlers.
I can hear them back there. That's great. They're starting pediatric trials now, as I understand, and I would hope, if we're lucky, by summertime we can say, with some level of certainty that it's safe to give in children. So, yeah, more coming up really soon. And then that's also going on, for pregnant women that are enrolling in trials as well. So I'll keep you posted on that. I think it will be safe in children. The only concern would be, could they mount a more significant immune response that could then create some neural inflammation. So I'd want to watch for the cases of myelitis, Bell's palsy in children before I gave it to my kiddos, particularly, if they were like less than 12 or so.
Hey, Dr. Grover, this is Erin Winchester with Jeff Gammon. Kind of to follow on from the question about kids, our daughter has an autoimmune disease, and what are now she's a teenager, and so what are the implications of somebody, she's currently in remission, but we're definitely very concerned about, kind of what it means for her.
Yeah, we had that question this morning on the call with the Department of Public Health, and that's a great question. It's really pretty much unknown at this point. I think if I had a kid with autoimmune disease, I would probably do some additional natural anti-inflammatories before and after the vaccine, like the glutathione is mentioned, maybe some vitamin C, just some things to cool off the body so that there's not a adverse reaction, kind of cool the flames a little bit. But I would still give it to them, and after the vaccine in a physician office, I would definitely have them hang out for minimum of 15 to 30 minutes, so that if something bad happened, they could be given an epi injection, etc. But I think they'll do fine. I think getting the disease would trigger much more of autoimmune response and more issues in terms of inflaming end organs. So I would still say go for the vaccine. Just do it with caution.
And kind of one other question. Given the timeline that you were talking about, maybe all of us wearing masks, maybe for a year, that's so depressing to think about, I guess. And I had read that there were maybe 5 vaccines that were scheduled to come out eventually. What do you know? I mean, I'm assuming the current timeline that you're discussing is based on either the 2 or the 3 that we know are ready, right? The Moderna, the Pfizer, and then the AstraZeneca are the 3rd. I've not heard of the other 2. So what do you know about kind of the remaining ones that maybe haven't been talked about as much? And does that change the timeline if they also are effective and come out quickly?
I don't think it's going to change the timeline much, unfortunately. I think the AstraZeneca has some potential to do it. The AstraZeneca has an adeno-like virus vector to it. It makes me a little nervous, to be honest with you. There's some worry in terms of long-term potential complications related to AstraZeneca, so I wouldn't do the AstraZeneca. However, if it was the only vaccine that was available to me and I lived in Durango or something, it's like, that's all we're going to get, then I probably would do it. The The other ones are far enough down the pipeline that they'll probably be deployed, in other countries would be my guess. And if they don't have the high efficacy of 94 to 95%, hopefully they'll just say, these are really not worthy of bringing to the table.
Right.
Yeah, but that's a great question. I think we're going to have enough volume of Moderna and Pfizer to ride this out and stay on the timeline. But if we have one other one that's maybe another messenger RNA, I think there are maybe a couple others that are making a similar one, and we can get access to those with similar efficacy rates. Yeah, bring it on, and go bigger with the access to it. I mean, my concern is the darn bureaucracy of the whole process of distributing this, and for me to be able to even get it in my private practice office, it's taken me like 6 emails. They sent me a form to fill out. I filled out that agreement form. Then they said, oh, well, thanks for doing that, but we also need you to do the electronic form now. It's like, well, why didn't you just have me do that alone? I mean, right out of the gate, there's all these issues of inefficiencies and questions that I'm kind of raising my hand about. So I just hope we've got the resources for public health and the coordination between the public and the private sector to make this happen. And then the other big barrier, as mentioned, is just people willing to go get the vaccine without being freaked out by misinformation.
Thanks.
Any other good
Dr.
questions?
Rosen, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Hi. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, yeah.
I guess yesterday and today I've read where the Moderna actually just lessens your symptoms and does not prevent it. Now, is that not true? Was that false information?
Well, I would say most people are not going to have any recognizable symptoms at all. And probably the worst case scenario would be if you got the vaccine and you got both vaccines and you were, say, a month out from the second one, you might have a day where you're like, oh, I feel a little off, I got a little headache and maybe a low-grade fever. But then you should be able to kick it in the butt with your antibodies kicking up within 24 hours. So that's probably worst case scenario. But I think most of us are not going to notice it at all if we've got that, mild subclinical case after we've had the vaccine. I think
it would prevent it then, the Moderna.
It will, yeah. I mean, it will prevent, what we're hopeful is that it will prevent any symptoms. What we're also hopeful for is that it will prevent the ability of you or I to transmit it to somebody else, even for a couple days if we've had an exposure. But we don't know that answer until we're maybe another year into this, and we can say, oh, we had, patient X who gave it to Y because they had the vaccine, yet there's still a positive test down the road. So I think we'll have to wait and see on that. But I'm confident that it's going to be a huge game changer for all of us.
And then the fact that 65 and older, the protection isn't as, I guess, guaranteed, or what? All right, it's more.
Yeah, and that's why when they say, your side effects are going to be less compared to somebody my age, that's because your immune response is not quite as robust. With a lesser immune response, we may find that the elderly need a booster, sooner than somebody who's 30 years of age. And we may have some vaccine failures where instead of it being 95% effective in somebody who's 80 years old, it's only 75% effective. And that'd be something we'll have to tease out as we continue to research this as well. And as that, becomes apparent, then we can say, all right, we need to do a higher dose like we do for, elderly with the flu shot, or we need to do a booster earlier, et cetera. Yeah. But I think in general, even if you're in an elderly classification, you're still going to have enough protection where it should save your life.
Okay, good to know. Also, would you find this fact out with a blood test? Would you do those blood tests that you did with Moderna, or do you just wait until the shoe falls. How do you know that this is really working for you?
I think we can have fairly good confidence based upon the trial results that it's going to be fine without having to check antibodies. But if any of my patients want to check antibodies, we can do it through Vibrant Labs, which is the one you saw that I did on myself. Quest and LabCorp have one as well. And the question is, if we run it through insurance, will they cover it for, tighter levels like we sometimes do for MMR and pregnant women and all? Sometimes they're a little hesitant to cover antibody levels, unless there's a strong indication, such as pregnancy, et cetera. But yeah, it's $150. It's not a horrible price tag to check your levels. And I would say if you get the vaccine, you're like, hey, I want to make sure I've got a good response. Give it about 3-4 months, and then we can do it here in the office with a simple finger stick, blot paper, or we can do a venipuncture for it as well.
Okay. And then since we live in the Winter Park area, Grand County, we don't have a lot of communication with what's available when. Should we just call the medical center and say, when would this vaccine be available, type of deal? I mean, is that the way you find out? Or
I would go to their website, and they should have it on there. And then the other place you can look is the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. They have a page. I'll put that link up on my website on the homepage there, and they're going to be announcing all the locations that have it. And it's interesting, there's some really small community health centers that have gotten quite a bit. Like I was looking at Mineral County where we've got the family cabin down there, and they got 100 doses. I mean, there's like 2 providers down there that I'm aware of. The town's got a population of maybe 200. So they're going to have an excess number of doses that were given to them just for, the front line. So I don't know if they're going to be giving them to the elderly or what's going to happen. The same may happen up in Winter Park, Fraser, where they have a little extra too.
yeah, that's what I was wondering. If
Yeah, I actually think the rural areas are going to have an edge over the urban areas in terms of access. And definitely the tribal Native American communities are being given preferential access, which I think is great. I think there's going to be preferential access to people of color, which is great. The main thing is, as we get into phase 2, your age and other people over the age of 65, can we roll it out really quickly, not just to University Hospital and Kaiser, but to all the community centers and private practices around the state of Colorado? Because there's so many small practices that need to be plugged in. And, I've plugged myself in, but I know there's probably a ton of family docs, internal medicine docs that haven't done the paperwork or the online stuff to get in line for it and to make themselves, accessible in the system to get it delivered.
I heard on the news last night, CVS and Walgreens was going to go into the assisted living facilities.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that's good. They're getting them involved. I think the more we can, spread the distribution of the vaccine, the better off we are. The main thing is just that coordination between public health and private sector. And I think their resources are pretty stretched, unfortunately.
I feel pretty stressed, though, to think of going to City Market grocery store to get this very, very important vaccine. I want to come to your office.
Yeah, I agree. And that's my goal. I don't want people to have to wait in a line at the Pepsi Center or at Denver Health or wherever, Walgreens. They should be able to get it in the safety of their own medical home, and this, stuff that you're seeing out in England where they're in a gymnasium in a line that's, 1,000 people long. I'm sure people are coming down with it. And again, you only get a 52% protection from that first shot. So, there's some vulnerability if you're waiting in a line.
Well, you're on speed dial for us, and we hope we are on your speed dial.
Yeah, for sure. It's great.
Thank you, Dr. Noble.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, this is
Hey, Jenny.
Virginia. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what it's going to seem like after we get the 2 shots. So after the 2 shots, we really won't know if we're protected. And you're saying maybe 3 to 4 months later, get an antibody test.
Mm-hmm.
So that means 3 to 4 more months we'll be living like this, which is pretty limited. We're inside. And then so there's that question, is that what it's going to be like? And then there's another part of that. How do we know if we're protected, how will we know when we're not protected? Are we always going to be looking over our shoulder or getting an antibody test to make sure? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think for a lot of us, we're going to want to know where we're at in terms of antibody status. So I think I'll be doing more and more of that in the practice, or we could do it through Quest or LabCorp. I think in terms of freeing ourselves from masks, I'm so hopeful we can do that sooner rather than later. I'm just like you. I'm so done with having to wear masks, but I'm doing it because it's my civic duty, right? I really don't even need to wear one now that I know I've got strong antibodies, but I want to be respectful to others. I don't want them to think I'm some, anti-masker jerk out there either. So I think we do our best to, particularly over the coming 4 months, to maintain our personal protection and limitation of exposures. And we watch the numbers in terms of how many people are getting vaccinated, and listen to the experts in epidemiology in terms of, we're reaching our herd immunity status of 70% in Colorado. We can kind of relax things in terms of going back to restaurants and, maybe still wear a mask while you're on the plane, but not so much if you're at an open air restaurant, et cetera. So those would be things we'll just have to wait and see on. Yeah.
Thank you for this.
For example, Doctor, this is Jim. For example, could you get the antibody test a month after you got your second shot, just to know that you got the protection?
Yeah, I did, because they wouldn't give me the answer. They wouldn't unblind it until just very recently. And so I was like, well, they're not going to tell me. I'm going to find out for myself, right? So it was about 2 months after my second dose. So yeah, I think all of you can do that at 2 months, or maybe 4 to 6 months after, to see where we're at. I'm very hopeful. I'm probably going to recheck myself again in another 4 months, which would give me that 6-month interval to see if I'm still solid. Kind of do my own research on where I'm at. And it would be great if other people in the practice want to check it. That way we can have our own cohort of practice results that I would keep confidential in terms of names, but I could share that of the 100 people who got vaccines, at 6 months out, those that tested were 100% on their antibody levels. So be good to have our own practice-based study.
Thank you.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Dr. Grover?
Yeah. Hey there.
Hi there. Thank you for doing this. This is really important for all of us. I have a question about allergies. I have egg allergies and others. Is that going to be difficult for me to get the shot, and will I have a reaction? Do you know the ingredients?
I'm not aware of any egg products in this. It's a great question. But I would say for you and for others that are sensitive, I would probably do maybe like a dose of Claritin before you go in to get the shot. I mean, you could do Benadryl, but Claritin's going to give you a little, it won't give you any of the sedation. And then I would definitely be sure to hang out for 30 minutes just to make sure you don't have a reaction. They could give you more Benadryl if you did. They could give you an epi shot if you did at that point too. But I think you'll be fine. I haven't seen much in the way of people having the need for EpiPens. Just 2 nurses actually that were given it in London, I think, had that hypersensitive reaction and got an EpiPen dose. But they actually had it in their purses, so they just shot themselves in the leg and they were good to go and out the door.
Well, that's good to know. I wish I was in Colorado. A little bit difficult here with the poor medical care. So just good to be able to share with you. And thank you so much. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas and aloha. Judy's in the big island of Hawaii. Don't we all wish we could be there?
Nice.
Hey, Fred, this
Doing
is
my
John.
little hula. Hey, John, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Great.
Mike, and thanks for doing this. My question to you is all the supplementation to boost immune system, which we are all try to do to prevent COVID. As I mentioned, I was tested positive. I'm feeling good, and I've been with some minor symptoms, and I've upped the supplementation. Is there a risk that you get your immune system so jazzed up that it gets too active and you get into this overactive immune system issue? How do you balance that risk?
Yeah, great question. I think there's a yin-yang balance, and the yin element of it is not only to give the immune support, but also to give the anti-inflammatory support. So when you look at my list of goodies in terms of things to take when you get COVID, a lot of it is cooling that fire off. So we cool it off with the vitamin C, some of the antioxidants, CoQ10, etc., so that as we're stimulating that immune response with things like beta-glucans and even some of the mycelial mushroom support, we're not creating too much of a overreaction there. So I think that can help. Polyphenols are great. Catechins, you know, we can get those in dark chocolate and coffee and whatnot. I think if you've got all those dialed in, you're going to be fine. Of course, if you did have a big cytokine response with shortness of breath and hypoxia, then we have to look at adding in the antivirals, adding in steroids like dexamethasone, and maybe even monoclonal antibodies, which I think if all of these are applied very rapidly and not like 2 weeks into your hospitalization, you're fine. And I would say if any of you get COVID and you're starting to have more of an inflammatory response, we can do dexamethasone at home to keep you out of the hospital. It's kind of it's the fire hose that we'd give you. But yeah, great question, John. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brad, I just have a short question about chaga mushrooms.
Yeah, I love chaga. I think it's a safe one to take as both a preventative and also if you were to get an acute infection. Are you doing the kind where you make a tea out of it or capsules?
No, I just brew the clumps in some water and I make a tea, and then I just use that in my smoothies or mix it a little bit with water and have it as a tea.
Yeah, and there's great evidence to show that it does work in terms of supporting immune function. I've done that as well. I'll boil it and then I'll let it cool down, add a little honey to it so it's a little sweeter, and then I'll store the rest of it in the fridge. I think that's a great intervention. And for those of you who want chaga, you can order it online. I have a friend in Wisconsin who's a big wild forager who sends it to me in a box. And yeah, I've still got some chunks of that left. I could share some with people on it. But yeah, great question, PJ. Yeah, good stuff.
Thank you.
Cordyceps is another really powerful one, not only for viral infections, but also for cancer. Yeah. So cordyceps and chaga.
Fred, I'm curious if you have a list of your resources that you recommend for people who get COVID or just as those viral supports. Is that something you share on your website?
Yeah, it's on I put it all on the homepage of my website, so it's front and center. So yeah, my homepage is kind of club chaos with a bunch of PDFs and all. But yeah, look there. It's all updated, and I'll keep adding some good stuff in there in terms of links to figure out when and where you can get the vaccine and videos on how the vaccine works, all that kind of fun stuff. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Dr. Grover, this is Josie. Hi.
Hey there. How's it going?
Oh, good. Quick question. To clarify, you said you are hopeful for February to get the vaccine. Is that for your high-risk patients, or is that for all your patients?
That would be for high risk, the phase 2. And I don't think I'll get vaccines for phase 3, which would be, regular folks under 65 with no chronic medical conditions, probably until late March or April if we're lucky. But I'm so hopeful for February that I can get vaccines in for phase 2 higher risk folks. So I will keep you guys posted. And then I will also, I think what I'll do is I'll even put that on my homepage too. So if you just go to the homepage and just say phase 2 vaccines now available, and then I'll put, what phase 2 people are, and then I'll do the same for each phase. So there'll be a newsletter, probably a Facebook page, all that kind of stuff. So I'll keep you in the loop.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Fred, this is a question on behalf of Doug Ellis, who just had to leave, but we were wondering whether we should get the flu shot. We've heard conflicting advice whether to get the flu shot ahead of time.
Yeah, that's a great question too, and I should have thrown that into my presentation. I definitely encourage the flu shot because if we get the double whammy while we're, waiting to get the vaccine, it could definitely be a game changer, take us down. So I would probably get that now while you're waiting for accessibility to the COVID vaccine. The good news is I've been watching the Children's Hospital Bug Watch, and I haven't seen any sporadic cases of flu, and I think that's because we're being good with masks and all. So I think it's relatively low risk, but I would still get the flu shot. I've given it to myself and a lot of my patients, and I think it's a smart strategy this year, even though the numbers are low.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All righty, we've got a couple more minutes, so any other questions?
Hi.
Hey, Janet, how are you?
How you doing?
Good.
Thanks so much for doing this. And I had a question about, I saw an ad yesterday in front of King Soopers. It said $25 rapid antibody test.
Uh-huh.
I looked it up. It's performed by Whitmire Medical.
Ooh.
Takes 15 minutes, and you can get it at a King Soopers pharmacy.
I don't know the sensitivity, specificity of it. I'd have to look that one up. But the Abbott one that's a rapid that many of the, like AFC Urgent Cares and some of these bigger franchises have, I think is around 80 to 90% accuracy. So it's getting better with the rapid test, but I would definitely ask them for numbers on that before you waste your money on it. Now, the really cool thing is I just heard that there is a new home test that we should be able to order on Amazon that's going to be available in January. They're going to produce 100,000 of them daily. And so what I would do is if you're still COVID-free, order up, a couple of those at least. Don't hoard them or anything. And the sensitivity specificity on that is closer to 90. So I was hoping this would be available months ago, that we could order stuff on Amazon or online, but we're just now getting it. So good time to order some of those when they become available. And then I have ordered rapid kits for my practice, and I just heard on Monday that I should get them in the next week or two, and they're also a fairly good rapid one. I forget the brand, but I'll be able to do those for folks. And I can still do the nasal ones. So if people have a pretty high risk concern of it, I can do the nasal, but it's such a pain. LabCorp only gives me a couple kits at a time, and then they won't give me 2 more until they've been submitted. It's just ridiculous. So testing's still a big issue that should have been a non-issue 6 months ago.
Second question, do you have the NAD in a form other than the patch now?
I do, and we're doing a lot of IV NAD, which is amazing. And the coolest way we can do it, and by the way, for folks, NAD can reduce your risk of severe COVID infection and hospitalization. My favorite is a subcutaneous through an insulin syringe, about 100 milligrams twice a week. It's the cheapest and most effective way to do it, in my opinion. And then if people want that bigger boost, we can do a intravenous dose of 1 gram, a couple times a month. Or if they really want to go big, we can do 5 or 6 rounds like many people are doing. It's great for helping with a lot of neurologic elements in terms of mood and reduction in anxiety, but also great in terms of supporting mitochondrial health for immune system function too. A lot of regenerative anti-aging stuff. I just put up a page on the benefits of NAD on the website, and it's kind of a work in process, but you can read some of the basics around that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
I have one question.
Yeah, Shelley.
If you have COVID and you don't know it because you haven't been tested and you get immunized, is there any downside?
Oh, good question. I have not heard of any downside. My thought would be if you had a really mellow case of it and it's kind of subclinical, that it wouldn't stimulate some kind of a huge reaction. But if you had a more clinically appreciable case where you felt like shit with fever symptoms for a couple weeks, the current recommendation again is waiting 90 days to play it safe. But I think if you inadvertently got it, you didn't know your antibody status and that you had it, no big deal. I think you'd do fine. You might just feel a little bit more achiness, would be my guess. But yeah, great question. Yeah. All righty. Well, I've got to run see a patient, and I think we had a good session today. Wishing everybody an amazing holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, all that good stuff. Happy New Year's. Hope everybody stays well. Definitely just keep up your game the best you can. I know this is a huge pain in terms of mask wearing and isolating ourselves, but if we can stay the course, particularly over the coming months, I think we're going to truly see the light at the end of the tunnel by midsummer and hopefully earlier. And I definitely need your support and help to squash the misinformation and to encourage others to step up to the plate and do this. I think that's our biggest challenge. So let's consider this to be a community health effort. And, if you want to share my talk, which I'm going to put out on YouTube, and then I'll post the link on my website, you can just copy and paste that and say, hey, here's Fred talking about the vaccine, share it freely. That would be great. And then, encourage our, public health officials, our politicians to do what they can to make this a more efficient process. And I think we'll get out of this hole that we're in. So thanks again. Be well. And holler at me. Email me, fgroverjr@gmail.com if you have any follow-up questions. And I'll do my best to answer those. And maybe I'll even just put the PowerPoint deck of slides on the website too. So if you want to share that out as a separate file from the video, you can do that too. Alrighty, kids, behave, stay well. Take care. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Bye-bye.
Bye.